guide to the unknown.
Okay, so for this week, I chose to research the Wampus Cat of East Texas, but I also learned that it is an Appalachian cryptid as well, and it is a half woman, half cat that prowls forests and wooded areas. It's been around since the 19th century, sometime in the 19th century. There's kind of it varies. Locals in areas like Sabine County, Nacogdoches, and Angelina National Forest, which I think is around the Lufkin area. They claim to see large, shadowy feline creatures darting through the woods, and it's often accompanied by unnatural noises and just a general eerie feeling. And it's often blamed for deaths of livestock and just eerie, creepy noises that go on in the piney woods after dark.
Leave it to the woods to make noise.
Woods, yeah, definitely. The description is that it's said to have a large panther-like body, glowing yellow or green eyes, sharp claws, but it walks on two legs like a woman, and it has an eerie human-like scream or growl. It's kind of the noise that it makes.
Gross.
Right? You don't want to meet that guy or girl
or thing
in the woods at night. There's a few encounters. In the mid-60s, a group of men were hunting. After they set up camp, they were surrounded by what they thought were panthers, but they didn't sound like panthers. It was more like a humanoid scream. They quickly packed up and returned home. There's not a whole lot
as
to
they
tell.
should.
As they should, yeah. In 1989, there's an encounter of a hunter and his father who were camping. They were woken up by a human-like scream from a large cat about 15 yards away. After shining a light in that direction, they described seeing two cat creatures on the road, one large and one very small, so they decided to sleep in the truck and just took off the next day. I probably wouldn't have stuck around to sleep in the truck, but to each their own.
Why not just leave?
There was one other Reddit story which I didn't write down because I don't think that it was a Wampus Cat because the description didn't fit. It seemed more like that thing that we don't talk about. So I didn't add it, but it just described seeing like a pale skin-like creature with wide eyes.
Yeah, like, no, that's the unmentionable.
Yeah, I don't think that that's what we're going for here, so I left that one out. But all in all, whether you've seen it or not, it is an important part of East Texas folklore. It's inspired festivals and merchandising, and there's like clubs dedicated to finding it and preserving the stories. There's even some schools that use it as their mascot. So
wow. We should go to the festival. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up and find out where it is. But that's really all I have. I don't have a lot of information. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Kind of dropped the ball on that one. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. I will look more into it. If you know anything about it, like always, tell us all the things.
We want your encounters of the Wampus Cat, which when I saw that name, I just died laughing. It was so funny. And I thought that's why you chose it, because it had a funny name.
That is, well, in cats, obviously. But yeah, I was like, I gotta know more. So that is why I chose it. So anyway, I didn't learn a lot, but hopefully I can learn some more.
Let us know if you've encountered it in East Texas.
I do have a reader story. It's an anonymous Reddit story. It's a little bit long. I have not read it, full disclosure, so we're doing this together at the same time.
I have. I sent it to her, and it is spooky.
So we are going in blind, and we're going to hear it at the same time. So it says, this happened back when I was 13 and my older brother was 15, almost 16. My family always lived in the Beaumont area of Texas, but a year before this happened, my uncle and his wife moved down to Alice, Texas to be closer to her family, and he also had a job opportunity lined up. Is Alice on the coast?
I don't know. I actually didn't research that part.
I don't know. We'll see. We were sad that our favorite uncle, we'll call him Uncle Frank, was moving away, but we were told we'd be able to visit for the summer once school was out. Once school was over, our parents helped us pack, and we took the 5-hour-long road trip to Uncle Frank's house.
5 hours in Texas. Day trip.
Right. Once we got there, we were so excited. He lived near an RV park that was right by a lake. We were told that we could go fishing together on the weekend, which my brother, we'll call him Dave, and I were super excited about. After unpacking and settling in, Uncle Frank and his wife prepared dinner and we all sat at the table. Frank said before we go outside to explore that he and Louise, his wife, had to had to break down some ground rules. Louise, who was always super silly and lighthearted, seemed to be very serious, which was so unusual for her. But I just brushed it to the side, thinking that she probably just didn't want us to break anything. Okay. Um, they told us, number one, turn off the lights when we're done. I had had a bad habit of leaving lights on and leaving the room. Doesn't every kid? Number two, uh, Louise would have to go to work part time from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. 3 days a week, and during those nights, we were not allowed to go outside or answer the door. Also seems like a pretty fair rule for kids. For Frank's new job, he would have to work from 2 to 10:30 weekdays, and we weren't allowed to go outside once it started getting dark unless he was oh, unless he was with us. My brother Dave thought it was a stupid rule that we couldn't be out past 5 since he was a fresh teen who knew it all, and he was hoping to ride dirt bikes and mess around doing mischief with Louise's nephew who was around his age and lived nearby. Besides, his curfew at home was 8 p.m., and we were allowed to play outside once it was dark at our house just as long as we phoned our parents and stayed up to date with them. Among these rules, there were more normal rules like clean up after yourself and blah blah blah. Kid stuff. Anyways, after dinner, we carried on like normal and played board games and messed around like young kids do. Throughout the week, Frank took us fishing a few times and we went out swimming on the lake. Dave was also able to meet up with Luis's nephew a few times. Fast forward to that Friday when Luis went into work around 3:30 and Uncle Frank was already gone. He left a couple of hours earlier. My brother was dying to meet up with Luis's nephew to ride dirt bikes, and he was sick of being bored and wasting summer inside. Typical teenage boy. His plan was to sneak out and return before Luis and Frank got home. Usually, I wouldn't participate in his mischief, but I didn't really want to be alone since there wasn't anyone to hang out with and not much for a 13-year-old girl to do at the house other than watch TV. I asked Dave if I could come, and he tried to deter me by saying that his buddy only had 2 dirt bikes for both of them. He would get annoyed at having to bring me places since I was the annoying younger sister. Anyway, I was able to convince him to let me come by blackmailing him that I would tell.
As you should. Always blackmail your brother.
I also convinced him by telling him that I'd just ride my bicycle there and ride it around his buddy's house while they dirt biked. We carried out the plan successfully and took the 20-minute trip there. We had to walk along a dirt path surrounded by trees that didn't seem to have many people walking about it. They had a blast and rode their bikes while I pedaled on my own and listened to music on my headphones. After a few hours of hanging out, it was already 8:15 and we decided to start heading home before anyone came home to notice us missing. At this point, it was pretty dark, not super dark at the point since it was summer, but dark enough that we knew we had to be home soon if we wanted to be able to see where we were going since there weren't many lights on the way there. I read ahead a little. I was riding my bike a few feet ahead as my brother walked behind me. I had my dead phone with my earphones wrapped around it in my back pocket. When I must have come undone and my headphones got caught in between the chain and the gears of my bike, which sent me crashing to the ground. I wasn't really hurt aside from a small scrape on my palm and felt silly. I started giggling and looked back to see my brother's reaction, but when I looked back at him, he was frozen in fear. Except he wasn't looking at me, he was looking past me. I turned my head to see a giant dog thing, except it was too large to be a dog. It had to be at least 7 to 8 feet tall. Holy cow. It had scraggly fur with missing patches, and it stood on 2 feet. It also had a super long teeth, and it was muscular. It had saliva bubbling around its mouth, and its most noticeable feature was its red, almost glowing eyes. Run, girl, run.
Gross. Saliva grosses me out. Like slobber, I can't do it.
We stood there staring at it for what felt like forever before it started taking slow steps at us. It made a low grumbling sound as it walked, and my brother and I were still frozen. At this point, we were at the halfway mark between our uncle's house and the nephew's house on the empty dirt trail. There wasn't another house near us either, as the closest one would be in the neighborhood of the nephew's house, and the RV park was at the other side of Uncle Frank's house, so I just knew that we were knocking on death's door. That's a fair assessment. Without thinking, I yanked my brother's arm and we both bolted back towards Luis's nephew's house. Since the thing was blocking our path, I couldn't grab my bike since the wires were still tangled between the gears. As we ran, we heard the footsteps come up so closely behind us that I could feel the heat of the monster on my neck. I was sure that the monster could outrun us with little effort, but I think it liked the chase. While running, my brother stumbled and in a flash, it got a hold of him. I wanted to keep running, but heard my brother start screaming and crying. I stopped to turn around, and I was sure that I would see my brother being eaten, but instead the thing just stared at him with its red eyes, and then it got up, snarled at me, and then ran into the darkness behind some trees. My brother laid there and had stopped crying. I knew that it didn't act fast, that it might possibly come back to finish us. My brother was still laying on the ground motionless with a blank expression, and I thought he was dead. At this point, I was standing a few feet away from him and approached him slowly. I tapped him on the cheek, and he didn't move, only blinked. I then smacked him as hard as I could, as you should with your brother, and told him that we had to go, and he just got up nonchalantly and started walking to Uncle Frank's house. I asked him what he was doing. I told him that we couldn't go that way because that's the way the monster went. He just blankly stared at me and told us that it was fine. I was freaked out by his change in demeanor and calmness since he was hysterical minutes earlier. I knew I didn't want to walk alone, so I followed a few feet behind him and let him lead the way. At this point, it's almost pitch black, and I was struggling to see ahead of myself, but Dave just kept walking forward, unfazed, until we somehow got to Uncle Frank's house. Also, when we passed the spot where I fell, my bike was nowhere to be found. I looked around and saw nothing. There weren't even paw prints in the dirt from where I fell. Not paw prints. There weren't even prints in the dirt from where I fell. Sorry. That's the first time reading this. I'm not sure how we made it home, but we made it back with no problems aside from me jumping at the smallest movements and looking around in paranoia. My brother was silent the rest of the night. Uncle Frank nor Louise were home yet, and my brother went straight to bed without a word. I took a long shower and then got in bed. A few minutes later, I heard the front door open and shut, and Louise came in to check on us. It was pretty strange for us to be in bed so early, but I guess she brushed it off. The next morning, Uncle Frank asked us if we wanted to go fishing, and we both said no, which seemed to confuse Uncle Frank. We just said that we didn't feel like it today. We didn't want to go outside anymore. We decided not to tell our uncle so that way he wouldn't get in trouble. We wouldn't get in trouble and be sent home early, since we barely got to see our favorite uncle anymore. Dave seemed to be more of his normal self in the morning, but still kind of strange. Also, when I checked the porch that morning, my bike was there, and I have no idea how it got there. My headphones and phone were gone, though. After that incident, my brother was never fully the same, and a few months later, he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and takes medication. I haven't talked to him in a few years because his paranoia sometimes gets the best of him, and he goes through spurts where he disappears. After that summer, we didn't want to visit Uncle Frank's house anymore since it was such a scary experience. Our parents tried to ask us why, since it was out of character, but we refused to give any real reason. I left Texas for college a few years ago, now graduating, but the last I heard of my brother is that he's still there and lives an unstable life. He's never fully been the same since the incident, and I wonder if he would still be the same if we hadn't left that day. I blame myself sometimes. Anyway, that's my experience. I still don't know what the monster was, and thankfully never saw it again. Does your brother turn into a werewolf on a full moon? Because I feel like that's what it was.
But the brother was staring past it.
Well, staring past her at the creature, and if it attacked him, and he has moments still to this day where he disappears.
I didn't think about that. I was thinking it was the dog man. But I don't know. I didn't do much research on the dog man. I know like a little bit about it, but I don't know if it has red glowing eyes like she described.
The only reason I'm thinking werewolf is because she said that her brother's still unstable and that he has moments where he just disappears for stretches of time.
Could be. I didn't ask her that part.
And I'm just saying, like, depending on what you believe about werewolves, you know? Not to mention that if someone returned the bike, it would have probably been someone who turned back into a human at some point and was able to return the bike.
It's a good theory.
So that's kind of my theory on it.
I was thinking the dog man. Let us know, dog man or werewolf in the comments.
What's your opinion?
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't think about werewolf. I just went straight dog man. That's where I went.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because I just did the Rougarou story, so it's in
Yeah,
my head. Because it's basically a werewolf. Slightly different than a
a
werewolf, but pretty
little
close.
different, yeah. Okay, so mine is Goatman of Old Alton Bridge. So Old Alton, I'm going to stutter on this word so much, so don't judge it, okay? Okay. Old Alton Bridge, also known as Goatman's Bridge, is a historic truss bridge connecting the cities of Denton, Texas and Copper Canyon. It is called Goatman's Bridge because it is said to be haunted by a half goat, half man. I don't know which part is which, so
I'm curious.
I couldn't find that much. So Oscar Washburn said to have moved. Nope. Oscar Washburn said to have moved his family to a residence just north of the bridge. A few years later, Washburn became known as dependable and an honest businessman and was dubbed the Goatman by locals. I guess he was a goat farmer. I that's I think that's what I read, but I didn't put it in here, so I'm pretty sure he was a goat farmer. um, so they dubbed him the Goat Man and displayed a sign on Alton Bridge reading "This way to the Goat Man." But the success of a black man was still unwelcome to many. And in August 1938, the Klansmen and the local government crossed the bridge and kidnapped Washburn. Trigger warning, they hung a noose on Old Alton Bridge and, after securing it around his neck, threw him over the side. When they looked down to see if he had died, the noose was empty. In a panic, they returned home to his family and slaughtered his wife and children.
Of course they did.
Of course they did. Locals warned that if you cross the bridge at night without headlights, as the Klansmen were said to have done, you will be met on the other side by Goatman. Ghostly figures and strange lights are said to appear in the surrounding woods, as well as reports of visitors being touched, grabbed, and having rocks thrown at them. This legend results in the area around Old Alton Bridge being popular among paranormal investigators, such as Ghost Adventures, and BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural, which I loved, Ryan. I don't know if you've ever watched them.
I didn't know BuzzFeed had a supernatural.
Yeah, they
thing.
canceled it back in 2020, but I loved Ryan. He was my favorite because I would react exactly how he would, which is running and screaming. I stand by Ryan.
I mean, that's fair.
I remember actually when I was reading it, I remember watching them. When I saw the picture of the bridge, I remember seeing Ryan on it in the middle of the night, which he's braver than me because I'm not going to a haunted place at night.
So, is he a ghost or is he a demon?
I don't know. I would say demon just because not demon because he was human at one point.
That's true. Okay, that's fair.
I would say ghost or dark entity. I don't know if ghost is the same thing, but I mean, dark entity for sure.
Definitely. He definitely hung on to that anger when he died and it turned him into something which fairly earned anger.
Yeah. No.
Not, not misplaced anger for sure.
For sure. We don't blame you, Goatman, at all. We understand.
I get it.
Okay, so this listener story was actually sent in from my dad. And when he was telling me the story last night, I broke out in hives because this house gave me so much anxiety as a 12-year-old girl. It was terrible. Terrible. It was so terrible. I can't even express how terrible it was. But you will get a little hint. So if I start shaking or not breathing right, it's anxiety. So I remember living through it. I was terrified of this house. The closest house was like a mile up the road ish. maybe a little less, but we were way off from everybody. We lived down a dirt road, with nothing but cotton fields around us because small town Texas. The closest city was like an hour away. I had so much anxiety in this house. I was about 12 to 14, I think, is the ages. I always felt like somebody was watching me. I have been sensitive to energies. I've seen shadow people. I think I started seeing those around 10. But that was right around the time my cousin and my grandma passed away as well. So, this is also a trigger warning for DV. Not long. I'm not going to go into detail, so you can stick around, but just a trigger warning, just in case. So there's this legend in my family that my great great grandma killed her husband and her son. And if you remember in the last intro, this is where I really started believing. So the husband was allegedly beating her, and she poisoned them. She didn't want her son to be a witness, so she also poisoned the son.
That seems excessive. Poisoning the husband, I get. 100%.
Yeah. The son, unfortunately, he was like 6. He was a young boy. So my dad had a party with his friends that night, this night of the story, at the barn. My dad was asleep on the couch and he went to the bathroom. When he stood up, he said, my dad said he saw the little boy standing there staring at him.
Oh no.
And my dad said it scared him. And he was probably, he was in his 30s, 35-ish at this point. So my account, my dad never got scared of anything. So for him to tell me he's scared of this means he saw something, whatever it was, he saw something. So he stood up to go to the bathroom. He said the boy was transparent. He was like really pale, but you could still see him. And so this is our living room, and there's a little hall, and then my dad's bedroom, and then down this hall there's the bathroom and another hall. It's important. Listen, okay? And then another bedroom, and then between the bathroom and the kitchen was my bedroom. So there was 2 doors, and then the kitchen and dining room. So my dad walked from the living room to the bathroom, and the little boy disappeared into his bedroom through his bedroom wall. Just
absolutely.
And my dad went to bed and never saw him again. At least that night, anyway, he never saw him again. On a different night, he asked the little boy if he wanted a toy, and the little boy just disappeared right in front of his eyes. And my dad was like, okay, so I guess that was a no. And so another night, my dad woke up and he felt somebody staring at him. And for whatever reason, this man slept with his door open for, I guess, because I was there. I don't know, maybe. But he woke up, sat up, and looked at the door. There was a 6'1" man figure standing there, just staring at him like he couldn't enter the door. For whatever reason, my dad's bedroom was off limits. Grandpa Ghost couldn't enter it for whatever reason.
Is that your great 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 grandma's room?
Before? That's what I'm wondering. Or if it was the little boy's room and she like blocked him from entering their son's room.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So my dad said he knows he wasn't dreaming because he got up and walked towards Grandpa Ghost. I'm calling him that because it's easier than man ghost.
Man ghost.
So he walked towards him, and he said the grandpa kind of shifted a little bit and then just stood there. And when my dad got really close, my dad said kindly, I don't know if that means like just kind of acknowledged him and turned away. I don't know what kindly turned away means. And walks around the corner to that back bedroom that we never used. It was used as a storage room because I guess me and my dad could both feel energies and we did not want to go back there. And yeah, so there's Grandpa Ghost. He was about 6'1", and he said stocky. He was a stocky guy.
Okay.
And my dad started following him through that to that back room, and my dad said as soon as he turned that corner, he didn't see him. He just disappeared.
Weird.
Another night, my dad was cooking for us, and he was sitting. So we had the dining room, and he turned to grab something, and Grandpa Ghost was sitting there staring at him. And my dad yelled, "Hey," really loud at him, and he just faded out really slowly.
So weird.
And then he said after yelling at him, he never saw him again. So we think the little boy was attached to my dad's room.
Yeah.
And Grandpa Ghost was attached to my room, which brings me to my stories. I hate these so much. I don't even want to retell them. But I do this for the pod. It's all for the pod.
All for the pod. The things we do.
The things we do. So we're going to start off in the living room. My dad was, so my parents were divorced at the time. I say that because they're remarried now. Don't ask, it's weird, I know. They're probably watching this like, shut up. But so I was home alone. It's small town Texas. I knew my dad's number. I'm used to being alone since it's my parents. Worked a lot. My mom is a nurse, and my dad was an electrician at the time and had a lot of hobbies like hunting and golfing. So he was on a guided hunt this night. He was guiding a hunt, is what that means if you're not familiar. And it was probably 8:39 on a Saturday, and I was about 12. I don't know why I'm looking at this because I know it from heart. And I was watching Duck Dynasty, obsessed. My 13th birthday party was Duck Dynasty.
Oh, R.I.P. Phil.
Yeah, poor Uncle Phil. I am so sad because he almost made it to the reboot, which I'm sure he's in some episodes.
Probably.
Because it was right up until, but he will be missed. He was one of my favorites on the show. Anyways, I was watching Duck Dynasty, and I hear a loud bang. And I never left the couch. I didn't get up.
Sorry, we had some technical difficulties.
I'm not sure what part you heard. So we'll go back a little bit. So I never left the couch. I had all my snacks and drinks and was just binging Duck Dynasty. And I heard a loud thud. And I didn't get up, so the house wouldn't have shifted. There was no wind, nothing. And I mentioned my dad was a golfer. So he had golf clubs, and the little tripod stands for golf clubs. It was on that all the time usually. So me, already being terrified of this house, sunk myself as deep as I could into the couch cushions and just buried myself until my dad got home around 10 o'clock. And he walks in the door, and the door's like right here from the couch. And he looks at me and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he just starts laughing. And I was like, "I heard a really loud thud." And he was like, "Well, did you go see what it was?" And I was like, "Hell no." Do you know what's in this house? Why would I go see what that was?
Why would you even suggest that?
Yeah, how dare you? And so he goes, and his golf clubs fell over. And he was like, "You're sure you didn't come in my room?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, my golf clubs fell over." And I'm like, "Oh, let's just say that like it's no big deal, huh? Okay." Ugh. I'm still holding a grudge from you. Dads. Number 17. So this next part is from me living in my bedroom because I had a computer because girls gaming girl games, whatever it's called now. I was on that computer all the time, and I am now convinced Grandpa Ghost tried to murder me.
Oh.
So I was sitting there, probably listening to a Taylor Swift song or watching Gator Boys, or who knows what I was doing on the computer. So I'm just sitting there doing whatever, and all of a sudden, the roof just comes crashing right next to me. Dust in my hair. Well, I'm pretty sure Grandpa Ghost was trying to kill me that night.
Holy cow.
And my dad comes running in, making sure it didn't fall on my head, which was pretty close. It was pretty close to falling on my head. Like dust in my hair, like dust on me. Like that's how close it was. So after that night, I never slept in my own bed again because I was convinced he was trying to kill me.
I mean, that's fair.
A little more about this house. Every night at 3 a.m., the doorknobs would rattle. Not just one.
Thank you.
Every single doorknob in the house would rattle. Like somebody was trying to get in and they were locked, just turning really, really fast. Yeah. I hate this house. I'm so glad it's torn down.
I was gonna say, no offense to your childhood home, generational family home, but I would have burnt that thing to the ground.
Yeah, no, it is in the dirt now. Luckily.
I don't, yeah. For the best.
Hated it so much. That's, if you have questions on why I believe, this is why I believe, because this house scared the living shit out of me. I got hives last night talking to my dad about it because it gives me that much anxiety, if you can't tell. So, bye.
You did good tonight.
Thanks.